It is my esteemed honor to introduce our very next guest, Imani Bashir. Now, listen, Imani did not make her bio easy on me. Mashallah, mashallah, she is so talented. Fierce journalist who's been featured in some of the biggest outlets: the New York Times, Forbes, Glamour, Essence, The Post, Huffington, and Washington. She is a CEO and extraordinaire of her very own fabulous line of luggage, and very practical as well too, which I appreciate. And she's a fearless woman of the world, sharing her adventures across the globe and her digital platforms. And it is just the tip of the iceberg. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Imani.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Aisha. That's a beautiful welcome. I'm definitely happy to be here with you all this weekend. All the work that you all are doing, I really do appreciate it.
Well, I had to bring it for you. I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely a fan and a follower online. So I hope you appreciate. But I appreciate you, and we want to hear from you. So, what does the legacy of Black Muslims in America mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It means everything to me. For me, just to give you a bit of a background, I'm multiple generations in terms of Black American Muslims. I come from the generations of Muslims that held on to their deen during the transatlantic slave trade. So it's something that I take pride in. My grandparents, in my paternal grandparents in the 50s or like the early 60s had to go to court in order to keep their names because they were considered Negroes with these very nuanced, very Muslim, very ethnic names. And so my last name, Bashir, means bringer of good news, bringer of glad tidings. And so for me to be a journalist, someone who is creating narratives and storytelling and, doing these things in this generation, that is my way of creating my legacy. One of the things as a Muslim is that we know is there are things that are going to be left behind for us that we leave behind for the next generations and many other generations that will continue to answer on our behalf on the day of judgment. And so as a journalist, that is something that I want to continue to make sure that I represent with telling the stories of who it is that we are, who it is that I am, and being able to understand there's so much nuance within the framework of being Black and being Muslim. And at those intersections, we don't have to divide the two. We can be both synonymously and that be okay. And so ultimately, I think the legacy for us is continuously strong. I think if we continue to make sure that we are proud in who it is that we are and don't allow others to dictate that we have to separate those identities, and that also we have been here. We're not new to this. We're true to this. We have held on to our deen. We have, been through multiple generations of keeping our legacies and our traditions and our cultures alive. And I am a result of it. A lot of us are a result of that. And so I think ultimately it's a matter of us standing firm in who it is that we are and not allowing others to dictate what our story is and what it's going to be.
That was so great. I was even taking notes. I love your line, not new to this, true to this. Appreciate you sharing that. And I know I opened up with a question in America, but your experiences stretch across the globe. That identity doesn't shift. And in fact, you've spoken about this in some of your pieces before, and you use the word disruptor. And you're a proud disruptor, not only of the travel space, but in all of your initiatives that you carry. So would you mind sharing with us, what does it mean to be a disruptor to you? Yeah, that's my question.
I mean, absolutely. I think the concept of being a disruptor is going against the grain, right? I was always taught by my father, and may Allah be extremely pleased with him, was that, Islam is the balance. We're not the extremities. So we're not the worst. We're not, you know what I mean? Like, we are the balance. We are that middle ground. We are that calm. We are not the storm. And so the concept is that whatever else is going on around us, we continue to be that consistency for change, right? We continue to be the ones that are advocating for the marginalized, for the people who need it, for those who, are coming here and still don't have a concept of who it is that we are. We are that catalyst for change. And so for me, ultimately, I'm not apologetic about who it is is that I am. You are going to mention my name, you are going to speak my name, and it better roll off the tongue, and the syllables better hit the phonetics, or you're going to have to say it again and you got to get it right. So, I'm not going to shortchange my name. I'm not going to, nickname myself. I'm not going to be that person that, I'm someone who wears hijab, right? But I'm also someone who understands the dynamics of what that means. And so therefore, even in being a disruptor, I'm not going to demean other sisters in the process of what it is that looks like for them, right? And so there's just so many forms that I feel that you can be a disruptor, but ultimately it's a matter of just being that catalyst for change, making sure that we are standing in our truth, recognizing that saying that we're Muslim is not putting us at a deficit, but that is continuously pushing us to the forefront of everything.
Again, thank you so much. Everything that you've been sharing, I'm kind of just taking in and having to pause for a minute, but there's so much to really soak in from what you're sharing. And I definitely relate to some of your experiences that you shared. And in my final question, one thing that I really appreciate about your content, whether it's digital or in some of these media outlets, there's so many. It's a diverse array of platforms, right? And there's different ways to engage. So your Instagram reels are so fun and creative, and it's just joy, and I love it. And then at the same time, some of your pieces, like the New York Times article, and then speaking about traveling abroad as a way of prolonging your son's life. That was a very powerful and can be a very emotionally taxing piece. But you have so many powerful pieces like that, and y'all, I definitely encourage you guys to check out her website. Can you just share with us, like, what is it that drives you to still embrace these platforms, and how do you do it in such an impactful way? Because all of these different sources are still coming back to Imani Bashir too, which I also think is remarkable to watch.
Absolutely. I think ultimately, I grew up, I'm born and raised Muslim. My father's born and raised Muslim, my grandfather. And even still, you grow up in a non-Muslim society and you have those ebbs and flows of who am I? What's my identity? What's my story? How do I fit in this framework of the majority of the people that I'm around? They don't get it. They don't understand it. But I'm not new. Like, I'm not like the concept of Islam, for Black people, the concept of Islam in America, it's not new, but people still don't know it. You know what I mean? And I'm in my latter 30s, and, my dad's in his 60s. My grandfather passed in his upper 80s. And so for me, it was a matter of, okay, if I'm going to attack this in terms of, saying that I'm a writer, saying that I'm a journalist, telling the stories that are important, leaving my mark on the world, then I need to tell the stories that, number one, matter, but are honest. They're authentic to who it is that I am and what my story is. And so ultimately, that's been pretty much the icing on the cake for me, is that personal storytelling component of letting people into who it is that I am. What is it like being a Black Muslim woman traveling around the world, giving birth to a baby abroad, raising a child abroad who's multilingual, who's Black, who's, living amongst different cultures and really learning how to interact and engage with the world. It's very intentional. And so ultimately, that's where all of that pulls from, is making sure that, maybe there's someone or someone's out there that's saying there has to be another way. There has to be something else for me. There has to be, another avenue that I could try in order to let people into who it is that I am. And I think that as a traveler, that's the best way that I get a chance to have people ingratiate who it is that I am, to be able to say, wow, I've never met a Black American Muslim. I never met a Black Muslim woman. I never met a Black Muslim in hijab, and all of those other things. And within those nuances, actually have a conversation with me, actually see how my family dynamic is with my husband and with my son, and give them a different interpretation of maybe something that they possibly would have never gotten if they've never come encounter with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really hope folks were listening on this piece. I might be biased, but this was definitely some of my favorite. Thank you so much, Imani.
I appreciate you, Aisha. Thank you so much. Thank you, Emgage. Thank you, Salima. I appreciate all the work that you all are doing. Thank you for inviting me for this very important conversation, because we need more of it. And it's so vital for us to be able to speak about who it is that we are and how it is that we show up in the world. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.